The college football season is over. Is the SEC's run as the 800-pound gorilla of the sport gone with the wind as well? Should the SEC just call the Big Ten its big brother? We're going to discuss next on Scarbo Knows with Kevin Skarbinski. It's late afternoon on the day after the world turned upside down. College football season ended with Indiana University as the national champion. Words that no one, not the wisest scribe of all time, ever imagined that they would be saying out loud on January 20th, 2026. And yet here we are. Hail to Curt Cignetti, hail to the Chief, the best coach in college football, just engineered the greatest turnaround in college football history, 16-0, taking down Miami in a classic national championship game. Kudos to the Hurricanes for punching back, for pushing the Hoosiers to the limit, and the Hoosiers responded like champions to win the game, to win the title, and to win hearts and minds all across this country. That's not corny, is it? Of course it is. That's why we love it. That's why we love sports. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Skarbinski. This is Scarbo Knows. We appreciate you joining us here on the Sidelines.live network with outstanding executive producer Brendan Martin. Thank you to our sponsor, Money Management Services, the Rice family. They can take care of any of your financial services needs. They're based right here in Birmingham, Alabama, the football capital of the South. Confirmed by the ratings. Once again, the city in the country that watches the most college football of anyone. The Rice family has been in business since 1992, a year that was momentous in Alabama history. Gene Stallings and company winning a national title. Check the QR code on the screen. Reach out to them. Good friends of mine. They'll take great care of you. We'll hear more from them later in the show. So let's get to it. Indiana is your national champion. Who? Hoosiers? Yes, those Hoosiers, more famous as a fictional movie nickname of high school basketball in the state of Indiana. And I guess we need Gene Hackman or someone like him to play Curt Cignetti in the movie, because this was a movie. This is not supposed to happen, folks. You are not supposed to be able to do what Indiana just did, going undefeated in the regular season, beating Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, destroying Alabama in the Rose Bowl, dismembering Oregon in the Peach Bowl, and out-toughing Miami in Miami's house. What does it the kids say? Walk in your trap, take over your trap. That's what the Hoosiers did last night in Hard Rock Stadium. Incredible game. And it kind of makes me sad always the day after the season ends, no matter who wins the national championship, because now we have to wait another 9 months for college football to be played again. But we've got plenty to talk about in the interim. But before we get away, we have to revisit what it is that Indiana did this season. We've never seen anything like it. They may not be the best team in the history of college football. That's a debate that will rage on for years and years and years. They are the first team to go 16-0 since Yale in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Doesn't really matter. It was a different world, then a different sport. To go 16-0 today, out of the Big Ten, through the playoff, is something we may never see again. And as soon as I say that, Texas will do it next year. Not to put any pressure on Arch Manning, Steve Sarkisian, Will Muschamp, and the Longhorns, but this was special. And just some amazing numbers from this game. Do you realize, and it will give credit to the folks at ESPN Stats and Info, Indiana did not lose a fumble over its final 1,047 snaps. That's the last 15 games of the year. They lost a fumble in the first quarter of the first game of the year and did not lose another the rest of the year. Going into the game last night, Their receivers had dropped a grand total of 6 passes all season long. Now, they had a couple of drops last night, very uncharacteristic, that could have been costly, turned out not to be. But what they accomplished is just amazing. No team since 2004 had gone more than 12 games without losing a fumble. They went 15 plus. It's just astounding what they accomplished this year and the way they did it. You know, sometimes when a team is just crushing people left and right, and someone punches them back and hits them in the nose and makes them bleed their own blood. And certainly Miami did that literally with Fernando Mendoza early in the game. There was a great debate on social media. Was it a cheap shot? Was Mendoza just carrying out a fake? Was it within the Miami defender's rights to pop him helmet to helmet and bloody his lip? I thought it was kind of a cheap shot, kind of a flashback to the U of old, but it didn't bother Mendoza. Didn't faze him. It didn't faze the Hoosiers when Miami refused to go away. They refused to roll over like Alabama and Oregon did. They kept coming and coming and coming. And it took a championship effort for Indiana to hold off the Hurricanes and then intercept Carson Beck with a chance to win the game. And here's another amazing stat. Carson Beck has lost 6 games in his college football career. 4 of them on the last snap, he threw an interception with a chance to take the lead. It's mind-boggling. How is that even possible? He had a great career. He just didn't win a national championship. He was a part of national championship teams at Georgia, but he wasn't QB1. And this was his chance. This was his shot. And he got the Canes to the precipice, but he couldn't pull off that final drive the way he did in the semifinals against Ole Miss. So kudos to Indiana. Kudos to Miami. That's what a national championship game should be. And of course, we go from the small picture, from the corny movie, Too Good to Be True script that Signetti authored. Fernando Mendoza, can any human being be that happy, be that upbeat, be that relentlessly positive? And yet he is. He deserved the Heisman Trophy, and he proved it why he won it time and again in that fourth quarter last night. But Curt Signetti, you know, some of the things he said in the postgame, the whole of his team was better than the sum of its parts. Absolutely true. Old school cliche, absolutely true. Keep your nose. It just proves if you keep your nose to the grindstone and you keep working and you believe in yourself when no one else does, and you surround yourself with people who believe in you and believe in themselves, you can achieve things that no one else believes are possible. Another cliche, all true. And Signetti and Indiana made it all come true. And that's why you have to admire the job that he did. Clearly the best coach in college football right now. Clearly the best turnaround in the history of college football. We thought it was amazing when Terry Bowden won his first 20 games at Auburn in 1993 and 1994 after the Pat Dye era ended with a whimper with back-to-back 5-win seasons. I thought it was astounding, and a lot of other people did too, when Bill Clark brought UAB football back from the dead to win multiple conference championships, multiple bowl games, after its own university wanted to discontinue the sport, and did for about 6 months. Those were great stories. I'm not sure we've ever seen a story quite like Indiana in the history of college football. And if you don't appreciate it, if it can't make you smile for at least a minute, why do you even follow sports? Because this is sports at its best. Think about it. Fernando Mendoza from Miami, not wanted by the University of Miami to play college football, goes to Cal as a 2-star recruit out of high school, transfers to Indiana for his final year with Curt Signetti, leads the Hoosiers to the national championship game in Miami, and then scores what turns out to be the winning touchdown on 4th and 5 on the play. There you see the play captured in that still shot on the screen. 4th and 5, they call a quarterback draw. He shows some shake and bake, evades one tackler, has to plow through others, and will not be denied, stretches out, lays out, full out, is about to take a shot in the back of his shoulder blades, did not lose the ball because Indiana doesn't fumble. It's amazing. And scores, again, what proved to be the winning touchdown. For Kurt Cignetti to go for it in that situation, it was 17-14 at the time. IU had the lead. They could have gone up 6 with a chip shot field goal, but he had a sense, smartly as it turned out, that they were going to 4 point. There's the play. The quarterback draw. The Miami defensive coordinator said they knew what was coming. There's the shake and bake. Here comes the cavalry. He evades one tackler, takes a hit right there, spins, and will not go down. He could have easily gone down right there. Would have been a first down, wouldn't have been a touchdown. But he lays out, and he's about to take a shot right there, like I said, maybe between the ribs rather than the shoulder blades, and he doesn't lose the ball. And he scores the winning touchdown. Now, again, there was still about, 7, 8, 9 minutes left, plenty of time, and that's why Cignetti realized that his defense was starting to get gashed by the Miami running game. He had to score more. He couldn't settle for a field goal there. It was the right decision. It was the right call on the quarterback draw, even though Miami, as I said, the defensive coordinator said afterwards they knew it was coming. They didn't quite get the call communicated to every player on the defense, so they didn't quite make the adjustments they needed. But it really came down to want. Fernando Mendoza didn't just want to make the first down. He wanted to score a touchdown, and he made it happen. And in large part, that's why they won the national championship game. So that's, in a nutshell, the details, the small picture from last night that will remain ingrained in the minds of college football fans for a long time. And that's a great still shot. You could see in the background. It really captures what happened, the effort of Fernando Mendoza. The fans in the background, most of them wearing red. And Indiana did what it did at every stop of the playoff. It took over the stadium. What was unusual in this case is they took over Miami's home stadium in Miami's backyard. Now, I know Miami, and I've heard it. I've heard from Cane fans all night long last night, all day long today. They're a small private school. They don't have as many alums as Indiana. They don't have as many students as Indiana. Of course, Indiana was able to have a larger crowd. Come on, man. Pull this leg and it plays Jingle Bells. You're a long-time college football power. You haven't been so powerful over the last 25 years, but you've won 5 national championships. You've got dozens upon dozens upon dozens of big-time NFL alumni. You got Michael Irvin going crazy, trying to will you to victory on the sideline. And whatever you think about Michael Irvin, you have to love the fact that he loves his old school, and he is there for his old school. And I hope as we enter this new era of college football where guys play for 3, 4, 5, 6, or in TJ Finley's case, 7 different schools in 7 years, that we don't lose that we don't love that bond that former players have with their old school. A lot of Miami guys have it. And I imagine that going forward, a lot of Indiana guys will have it as well. But Indiana took over the stadium, and now the Big Ten, it appears, has taken over college football. It's been a big run, 3 straight years. Michigan in 2023, 2024. They got it rolling under Jim Harbaugh. They won the national championship, went undefeated. Then last year, the first year of the 12-team playoff, Ohio State in 2024-25 under Ryan Day. They got nicked a couple times. They got beat by Michigan in the final regular season game. Didn't matter. They got on a roll. They won the big ring. And then Indiana completes the trilogy. 3 different force of habit. 3 different Big Ten programs, 3 straight national championships. What are we to make of this? What does this mean for college football going forward? Does this mean that the Big Ten will rule the sport as long as we can see into the future? Does it mean that NIL and the transfer portal have relegated the SEC to just another conference? Has the Power 2 become a Power 1? We're going to explore that in some detail as we go along. And of course, on any issue facing college football, on any subject, Nick Saban has an opinion. And of course, given Saban's standing in the sport, given the fact that he won 6 national championships at Alabama, to go with the one he first captured at LSU, he is considered the voice of authority when it comes to college football. Not everyone agrees with everything he says. I don't agree with everything he says. And by the way, did you see the news that ESPN is coming out with a 6-part docuseries on Nick Saban's life and times called Saban? I think they're intending it to be something like The Last Dance, about Michael Jordan and his last ride with the Chicago Bulls. I don't know how good it's going to be. I just hope it's more honest and real than the fictional puff piece they did on Lane Kiffin to start this season. I can dream, can't I? But Nick Saban had something very pertinent to say about the shift in college football power. And he was on the Pat McAfee show on Monday before the national championship game talking about this new era, NIL, revenue sharing, transfer portal. And he said, quote, "It's an advantage for the Big Ten. I don't care. You'll never convince me otherwise, because people in the South would not go to the North unless you paid them." Period. End of quote. Nick Saban said that. Now, that's a great laugh line. People in the South wouldn't go north unless you paid them. And I can speak on this subject with a little bit of authority, since I was born and raised in Pennsylvania and graduated from high school there before moving to the South with my family, thanks to a job change, or a location change for my dad's job within his company. He worked for the same company his entire career. How old school is that? And happy birthday, Dad. He turned 91 last week. How cool is that? Still cuts his own grass. He's amazing. He's my hero and my role model. But we grew up in the North. We moved south, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't want to move back. I wouldn't want to experience the temperatures we're experiencing in Birmingham right now on a regular basis. And now they tell us we might get an ice storm this weekend. No, thank you. Can we pass on that? Can we get lucky? Can we get a break? So I understand what Nick Saban is saying, that it is money that is luring these players who are largely based in the South and in the Sun Belt. You can go west. You can go across to Texas. You can go through Arizona into California. And the majority of talent that will help you win championships resides in those warmer weather climates. But now, a lot of those guys are choosing to play in the North. Why? Because they're getting paid. Because Ohio State and Michigan and now Indiana, since Mark Cuban is on board, so they've got pretty hefty NIL vaults to use to lure players who might have stayed home in the past, who might have wanted to play in front of their families more often. Now, of course, every game's on TV, so that's not as much of an issue. But they're pulling players from the South. And you want some examples of that? You want to see some specific examples of an underground railroad that helped Indiana win the national championship? This is a small sample size of what Saban was talking about. Charlie Becker, maybe the most sure-handed receiver in college football. He caught the 4th and 5 pass that set up the 4th down run for a touchdown by Fernando Mendoza. Actually, I think the 4th down run was a 4th and 4. Not really relevant. But Becker caught the back shoulder throw. They should call him back shoulder Becker. He made the back shoulder catch that continued that drive that led to what turned out to be the winning touchdown. He's from Nashville. Keelan Black, he was Indiana's leading rusher against Miami. He's from Virginia Beach, Virginia. He followed Signetti from James Madison to why do I keep wanting to say Cincinnati? Indiana. Mikhail Kamara, defensive lineman. One of the biggest plays in the game. He blocked the punt that Indiana recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. He's from Ashburn, Virginia. Another James Madison expatriate who followed Signetti to Bloomington. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback, of course, we've already talked about this. He's from Miami. Nico Radicic, the place kicker, he made 2 field goals. That was the difference in the game. 27-21 was the final. He's from Coppell, if that's how you pronounce it, Texas. And Jamari Sharp, who clinched the game with that last-minute interception, he's from Miami as well. And he had a quote after the game and said, I always wanted to play for Miami. I always wanted to play in Hard Rock Stadium. Never got the chance. Well, he got the chance on the biggest stage in the sport, and he saved the day. He ended the game with that last-minute interception. All those guys from the South, from the Sun Belt, yes, Virginia's part of the South. Check your Civil War history. And yet they're all playing football, or did, and played a prominent role for the Hoosiers of Indiana. So maybe Nick Saban wasn't just trying to be a wise guy when he suggested that it's easier to pull the talent out of the South, where much of the talent resides, despite the weather you have to play in occasionally, if you're going to get paid handsomely for it. So as usual, Saban's pretty spot on. So what does this all mean for the conference whose headquarters is about 30 miles south of me, where I sit now in Birmingham, Alabama? What does it mean for the Southeastern Conference? Is it RIP for the SEC? May I suggest you tap your brakes? May I suggest you cancel plans for the funeral? May I suggest you rewrite the obituary, or actually crumple it up? Just get that piece of paper, just crumple it up, toss it in the trash. Let's look at what happened to the SEC during this incredible run, which the Big Ten had never achieved before. The Big Ten had never won 3 straight national championships by 3 different schools. The SEC did it from 2019 to 2022. They won 4 straight by 3 different schools: LSU, Alabama, and back-to-back by Georgia. So kudos, Big Ten, for catching up. And by the way, the Big Ten putting a team in the championship game for 3 straight years, if they do that for 5 more years, they can match runs that the SEC put together when they had 8 teams get to 8 consecutive national championship games from 2015 through 2022. And it was more than 8 teams because we had a couple of SEC on SEC games in that run. It also happened from 2007 to 2013. The SEC won 7 consecutive national championships, and Auburn came up an eye blink short of an 8th. But they had a team in the finals 8 straight years. So while, yes, the Big Ten's on top now, look at how close the SEC came the last 3 years. In 2023, Alabama, they were in the semifinals of the last 14 playoff. They lost to Michigan by a touchdown. Alabama led late in the 4th quarter. Michigan had to score to force overtime, and Michigan won it in overtime. Does that sound like a dead program that took the eventual national champion to overtime in the semifinals? 2024, Texas. They were in the semifinals against the eventual national champion, Ohio State. It was a 21-14 game. Texas was driving late in the game to tie the game. And some things went horribly wrong. A strip sack and a, 70, 80-yard return later, and it's a 2-score game, and the game's over. But the Longhorns were driving to tie the game late in the game. And then this year, Ole Miss, a great story in itself. There you see Pete Golding trying to explain after the game. In the semifinals against Miami, another fantastic football game. They led the game in the final minute, in the final 30 seconds. And it took an incredible drive by the Hurricanes, led by Carson Beck, who scored the winning touchdown with about 18 seconds left on a scramble when people forgot that he had legs, and he was able to practically walk into the end zone to score the winning touchdown. So, yes, It is true. It is a fact. You cannot rewrite history. The SEC has not had a team in the national championship game for 3 straight years. The last time that happened was 2002, 2001, 2000, and 1999. It was a 4-year drought. But it's not as if they weren't close. It's not, I know I sound like you freeze now. It's not as if they weren't a play or two away in each of the last 3 years from putting a team in the championship game. So let's not get confused here. Let's not suggest that because the days of the bagmen are over, because as former LSU coach Ed Orgeron said, we used to walk through the back door with the money. Now we walk through the front door. And everybody laughed, but everyone winked and nodded as well. And everyone understood exactly what he was saying. And please, if I get one more X post from someone who either loves the Big Ten or hates the SEC or both, who tells me, see, this is what happens when the SEC is not allowed to cheat anymore. This is what happens when the SEC is not the only school that can pay players anymore. Are you kidding me? Are you really going to sit there with a straight face and say to me, who's been following college football for 4 decades, who grew up in Pennsylvania, wanted to go to Penn State, was a Notre Dame fan because I was born and raised Catholic. You're going to sit there and tell me that no one else in college football for all those years was paying players under the table, was giving out $100 handshakes, was stuffing 10s and 20s and 100s in McDonald's bags. You're going to tell me only SEC schools did that? The NCAA enforcement database says otherwise. So get out of here with that noise, okay? Here's where we should be concerned about the SEC, though. And this is why they have a real issue going forward. You know, they like this slogan. It happened. Greg Sankey commissioned a high-dollar marketing firm, and they came up with a slogan after he became the commissioner. It just means more. Well, sometimes you have to wonder, is more too much? And not that long ago, the SEC announced that starting next year, it's moving to a 9-game conference schedule. They've been playing 8 since 1992 when they split into divisions, when they expanded with Arkansas and South Carolina, and Roy Kramer had the vision to play a conference championship game, which became wildly successful financially and otherwise, wildly popular, and really helped SEC teams prepare for first the BCS championship game and then the 4-team playoff, not so much for the 12-team playoff in the last 2 years. Brilliant idea. But now, because Tony Petitti and the Big Ten shamed the SEC into doing it, and the drumbeat has been going on for some time. Oh, the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. The SEC plays only 8. That's not a level playing field. The SEC is playing Eastern Illinois and Western Cupcake U late in November. That's an advantage. By the way, can we mention that the last 3 national championships were won by Big Ten teams who did not play a single Power 4 out-of-conference opponent? Michigan didn't do it in 2023. Ohio State didn't do it in 2024. And Indiana did not do it this year. They no longer have a requirement in the Big Ten that you must play at least one out-of-conference game against a Power Conference opponent. The SEC does have that requirement. And now it's going to play 9 conference games starting next year. I have a feeling that it's just going to mean more. It's going to mean more losses for SEC teams. It's going to mean more injuries for SEC teams. It's going to mean more chances for Big Ten teams to win more national championships. Because as good as the Big Ten has been at the top and is right now, and it is better at the top than the SEC, yes, the defense will stipulate, Your Honor. Top to bottom, the SEC is still superior. There are more teams in the SEC that can beat you on any given Saturday. There are far more teams in the SEC that can beat you up on any given Saturday than there are in the Big Ten. And all you have to do is look at Alabama's football team this year in its second season under Kalen DeBoer. That team was a MASH unit in November. That team, that quarterback, Ty Simpson, he listed his injuries after the season when he was talking about his decision to move on to the NFL. And the things that he played through and played with, lesser men would not have been able to deal with. Lesser men would not even have attempted to play through. And maybe, big picture, might have been better for Alabama had he not. Have they gone to Austin Mack? Or maybe Keelan Russell. In any case, playing more games is not going to be, I don't think, the positive that the SEC envisions. Yes, strength of schedule is going to matter, hopefully, in getting more teams into the playoff. But if you get more teams into the playoff, and the SEC had 5 this year, does it matter if you don't have an elite team? Aren't you better off being the Big Ten with 1 or 2 or 3 teams with a chance to win a national championship, who don't have to play that level of competition week in and week out? And you want some evidence of that? Look at the final AP college football poll that just came out today. And this is striking. The SEC only had 1 team in the top 5, Ole Miss at number 3. The Big Ten had 3 teams in the top 5. Indiana, of course, at number 1. Oregon at number 4. Ohio State at number 5. All right, let's move down to the top 10. Now it's advantage SEC. Volume, quantity over quality. You got 4 SEC teams in the top 10. Alabama finished number 9. A&M 8. Georgia 6. There were no Big Ten teams between 5 and 10. There are no Big Ten teams between 10 and 15. And between 10 and 15, you add 3 more SEC teams. Texas at 12, Oklahoma at 13, Vanderbilt at 15. So that means of the top 15 teams in the final AP poll, 7 came from the SEC, only 3 from the Big Ten. But they don't give out trophies for the most teams in the final AP top 25, do they? They give out trophies for the team at the top. And as we said, the Big Ten is better right now at the top than the SEC. Some of that is NIL and the transfer portal and money. More of it, especially this year, in the case of Curt Cignetti in Indiana, is identifying talent. It is procuring talent. It is developing talent. And if you're going to try to diminish or downplay what the Hoosiers have accomplished by saying, well, they have an older roster. Their guys average 23 years old. They have a bunch of four-year players and 5-year players and maybe some 6-year players because of the COVID year. And that's why they went 16-0. That's why they did something that has not been done in either the 20th century or the 21st century to date. They went 16-0. You're doing it wrong. You're just looking for a reason to take shots at the team on top. And Indiana doesn't deserve that. What Indiana does deserve is every flower you can throw at their feet. Because this was an extraordinary season, played by an extraordinary group of players, coached by an extraordinary group of coaches, and led by the best coach in college football today, Curt Cignetti. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And the SEC will stick to it too, because football means too much to too many people in this part of the country for the SEC to take its ball and go home, as Notre Dame did before the bowl season. It means too much to too many people in this part of the country for coaches and players and administrators and fan bases and boosters to try to figure this thing out. So this becomes the last 3-year period in the history of college football in which the SEC does not put a team in the national championship game. I don't bet, but if I did, I would put cash money on the table and tell you that over the next 3 years, there will be an SEC team in the national championship game And there will be an SEC team doing snow angels in the confetti after the final game as the national champions. Wouldn't be surprised if it's Texas next year. All right, that's going to do it today for us here on Scarbo Knows. I'm Kevin Skarbinski. Thank you to Brendan Martin and the Sidelines.live network. Check out all the great shows on the network. Thank you to you for watching, for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Don't cost nothing, as Bluto Blutarski, that noted philosopher, once said, but it does help us. And thank you to our sponsor, Money Management Services, the Rice family, good friends of mine. They'll take great care of you, whatever financial services you need. Let's hear from them next. That's going to do it for me. See ya.
Since 1992, Money Management Services in Birmingham has provided individuals and business owners with trusted, fee-only financial advice. We're more than advisors, we're your financial family. From retirement planning to tax strategies and estate planning, our team builds personalized wealth management plans tailored to your life. At Money Management Services, we treat you like family, because when you walk through our doors, you become part of ours.